John Petrucci, that's actually pretty good. Hey guys, my name's Keyan Houshmand, and in this video we're going to be going over the brand new Neural DSP plugin, the Archetype Petrucci. So if you know anything about John Petrucci and Dream Theater, you know that John Petrucci is literally one of the most talented guitarists in our time. For decades now, he's been just paving the way for the modern guitarist with his absolutely insane guitar skills, as well as being a little bit of a tone meister. Him working with a company like Neural DSP does not surprise me at all, because they are also very forward thinking in the way that they go about their products. And when I got the email from Neural saying that this was going to be a thing, I was very excited, because I know that if John Petrucci is working with Neural DSP, he's going to spare no expense and he's going to make sure that he gets everything he wants. And that was confirmed when I read that this was their most meticulous plugin yet, and I'm sure that's just a labour of love from John and everyone at Neural, getting it exactly the way that he wants and being very, very, very picky about everything, as he should. And you can get a great sense of that just by looking at the plugin, because there are so many new features and it's definitely the most extensive plugin that Neural DSP have ever put out. So let's see what it sounds like in a mix and get into the plugin. But before we do that, if you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you see or hear. And if you want to see more of the stuff, definitely think about subscribing. If you guys want the tabs, stems, DIs, drum tracks, all that good stuff to the demo song that you're about to hear, definitely check out my Patreon. I have a link for that and all my affiliate links down in the description below. So how does Archetype Petrucci sound in a mix? So here it is, the Archetype Petrucci, and this is what it sounds like when you open it up. So just to quickly go over the whole plugin, so on the first page we have a wah pedal and a compressor. Now this wah pedal and the volume pedal that is over here are both MIDI controllable, just like everything else in the plugin. So if you do have a MIDI foot switch, you can connect it to the wah pedal. Moving on, we have the stomp box page. So we have an overdrive, phaser, chorus, flanger. Now straight away, if you've used any other Neural DSP plugin, you'll notice that this is definitely the most extensive out of all their offerings so far, with all these different pedals in there. We have 4 different amps. So we have a Piezo amp where the cab and EQ disappear when you click it. I don't have a Piezo equipped guitar, but apparently it still works really well with split coils and single coils. Then we have a clean amp, high gain amp, and then a lead amp. Going to the cab section, you can probably tell it's a little bit different than usual, and that's because we now have room controls. So apart from all the different microphones that you can pick from, as you can see, the only ones that is basically the same as any other Neural DSP plugin is the 421. The rest of them, from memory anyway, are completely different, so that's good. You get a little bit different tonal palette there. You can load in your own IRs as well. But the main feature of the cab section this time around is definitely the room control here. As you can see, for both sides, left and right, you can kind of enable the room sound, and you can choose between close, mid, and far, and how much you want it in your tone. Let's turn the room mics on. Super close, so there's not much space. You can tell that sounds choked off already, but I like mids. So this kind of gives you the impression that you're playing in a room as opposed to playing on a set of monitors like I'm doing right here, where it's like it's a mono guitar process sound straight down the middle, straight to your ears, where this gives you a little bit more width, a little bit more depth. Maybe a little bit more enjoyable to play just when you're jamming out and stuff, just to get the feel like you're actually playing through a real amp. Going to the EQ section, even the EQ is different this time around. So instead of having the 9-band EQ of fixed values, you can now have 4 bands, but you can pick exactly the frequency that you want. So for example, instead of it being locked at 250 like it was before, I'm pretty sure you can now kind of slide it around and have it exactly where you want it and take it out or boost it. This is really handy because obviously all cuts and boosts aren't going to work for every single guitar and every single piece of gear that you have. So having the flexibility to do this makes everything a little bit better. Then, as I mentioned before, there's a volume pedal, which again is MIDI controllable. I don't have a MIDI foot switch, but I can still use it with my mouse. This would be really handy for ambient stuff as well, and I'm sure that this is a stable part of John Petrucci's rig, otherwise he wouldn't have asked for it in his plugin. And then last but not least, we have the post effects page, so chorus, delay, reverb. The reverb has a shimmer, the delay has a dual reverb where you can set the times individually for left and right, which is really cool. Also has crystal, tape and modulation controls. And the chorus is the second chorus in the plugin, so there's 2 instances of choruses, one before and one after. And it's got the same controls as the one before it. The top is a little bit different this time around as well. So now we have a transpose knob and a doubler. So the transpose is basically just a pitch shift control, takes your DI signal before it hits anything in this plugin and just pitch shifts it. So right now I'm in drop C. If I want to play it in drop B, I'll take it down 1 semitone, drop A sharp, drop A, and again if I want to transpose up, for example, if I want to play a song in drop D, I'll just put it up 2 semitones and now I'm in drop D. And this is really handy if you're just like trying to play along to a song, or you're trying to learn a song and you can't be bothered like retuning your guitar or getting another guitar, something like that. It just makes life easy. It's not going to sound as good as tuning down, and you're not going to get, you know, that clarity when you do really big chords and stuff, but for a quick fix, it's more than enough. We now have the doubler switch, so what it's doing is it's taking the signal that you're playing and then it's pushing it left and right, but it's adding a little bit of a delay, so it kind of creates a stereo image as opposed to playing them both at the same time left and right, so it just sounds like big mono. Even though this is technically dual mono, it still has that stereo kind of effect. And you can adjust the spread, so if you want it to be a little bit tighter, you can put it down. If you want it to be super spaced out, you can put it all the way up. As I mentioned before, MIDI functionality inbuilt within this plugin, which is very handy, so you can basically get any parameter within this plugin and assign it to MIDI if you have a controller, and there's also a built-in tuner as well, which is nice. I'm not going to go through every single pedal and play with every single knob on every single amp, purely for the fact that if I did that, we would be here for 45 minutes. It is worth mentioning that just like all other Neural DSP plugins, you can get a free trial of this yourself for 14 days. So you can try it out yourself and you can test everything I'm about to show you yourself for free for 14 days. And you get a better understanding of it when you sit in front of it and play with it yourself, as opposed to me playing around with each knob, showing you what it sounds like. What I will do though is go through some of the presets that I made and kind of show you how I made them, and then just give a little sound demo. So starting off, we got no effing around. Pretty self-explanatory. Just that very typical high gain modern metal sound. Very easy, no fuss, no worries, just plug it in and play. That was the aim when making this preset. Quickly going through it, we have the overdrive on, typical settings of drive all the way off, tone pretty high, and then level all the way up. We're using the third amp, gain relatively high. For this amp, you might have noticed that when I played through it, when we first got into it, that the amp really isn't that gainy. You do need to drive it a little bit. There's also this bite switch, which adds a little bit more top end. Bite switch on. That's really handy for 7 strings and 8 strings and stuff that John Petrucci is known for using. But for this guitar anyway, for this playing in drop C, I don't really find it necessary. A tight knob, which is really handy. You can have a little bit more low end or a little less low end depending on how hard you dial it in. Bass, mids, treble with a mid boost, and this is basically just changes the characteristic of the mid, so it's a little bit more honky when it's on. So when it's off, when it's on, I wasn't a fan of how that sounded with this guitar in this tuning, so I didn't turn it on. Treble, presence, master a little bit down, and then compensating by putting the level up. For the cab section, we are using the dynamic 2500 with the ribbon 353, and I've dialed down the ribbon 353 just a little bit, so the bulk of the work is being done by the 2500, and I'm pretty sure that's the closest thing to a dynamic 57 within this plugin. Nothing major happening on the EQ. The only thing that's happening is that now that I can pick the exact frequency I want, I'm getting that kind of like low mid rumble that I'm not necessarily a fan of, and taking it down by about 1.5 dB. So it's kind of this sound. That like swollen sound I'm not so much a fan of, so I like to turn that down, and basically any high gain rhythm tone that I do. That might have been a little bit too much. Let's go back to what we were at before. That's better. Moving on, we have a preset called Saw. Now this is like my lead preset. I have engaged the compressor for this one, and I'm riding it pretty hard as well. Again, same overdrive settings. I don't have phaser, chorus, or flanger on because I want this to be a little bit more of a like traditional lead tone where you can still hear the playing, and it's just kind of being undermined by a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb post. We are then using the lead amp. As you can see, most of the dials are pretty relatively close to noon. There is a saw switch that's on, so this saw switch is basically like a cut, so when it's off, your lead tone's a little bit warmer, and when you put it on though, there's a lot of high end being added, and it definitely cuts through more, and that's something that I'm a massive fan of, so I have that on, and that's why I've named the preset Saw. Going on to the cab section, we're using the 2500 and the 353 again, but I'm taking a little bit more the 353 out only because I don't really like to have my lead tones too woofy. Going on to the EQ, the only thing that I'm doing is taking out a little bit of 500 and boosting a little bit of 3K, which is something that I do on most of my lead tones in post anyway, so I thought I would just do it within the plugin now that it's here in front of me. And then I have the delay and reverb on. I don't have the shimmer on for the reverb, and I'm only using mono delay. Like I said before, I don't want this to be too outlandish. I just want it to be like a very typical lead tone, something that I know will work, like absolute bread and butter. As you can see, the dry and wet signals for both delay and reverb aren't too much. I am doing a little bit of modulation for the delay, but apart from that, ooh. Moving on, there's a little bit more of an effects heavy ambient type of preset called Delay Tray. We have a compressor engaged, but it's not as heavy as the lead preset. No overdrive this time, but we are running a chorus with fairly conservative settings. Then we have a high gain amp again. Craziness here, I'm not sure, I can't really explain most of this, but I am using the mid boost because I like the way that this made it cut, especially with this type of tone, something a little bit more ambient. And I think to have a little bit more of a different flavor than like the high gain rhythm tone, just to make it sit somewhere else on the frequency spectrum, it's really handy to have the mid boost on. I'm using a 2500 and a condenser FET 301 for this one. No EQ because again, it's like an ambient preset. I'm not trying to duck anything or boost anything. I just kind of want it to, you know, be the way it is. I'm not thinking about it too much. And then we have all chorus, delay, and reverb on. So 2 instances of chorus in this one, but this one isn't really doing much. As you can see, the knob is pretty much all the way down, just adding a little bit of something. We are doing dual delay though, so on the left side it's in quarter notes and on the right it's in half notes, with modulation and tape. And then we have a fairly wet delay with a lot of decay, so you can probably get an idea of what it sounds like before I even play it. So as you can tell, it's very easy to get lost in that preset, and it's one that I enjoy playing a lot, and it's one I'm definitely going to be using in a lot of my productions going forward. And then last but not least, we have a clean preset called Come Said the Boy. Now this is inspired by a song called Come Said the Boy by an Australian rock band called Mondo Rock. Some of you might know that, some of you might not, but classic riff in the song that has a lot of effects. It's like a Strat clean tone. Sounds something like that, so that's what this preset was inspired by. Again, compressor on, chorus on again, and we are using the clean amp this time around. I haven't put the bright switch on, but there is a bright switch which obviously makes your tone a little bit brighter. I thought that was a little bit too picky. If you were running humbuckers or something like warm humbuckers, that's a great way to kind of brighten them up a little bit. Again, like I mentioned before, all the knobs are pretty much at noon for the most part anyway. I have turned gain down a little bit because I don't want it to be too gained. You can ride the gain on this clean amp. Oop. A little bit warmer, a little bit more saturated, but I want it to be a bit stringy, so I'll turn the gain down. Going to the cab section, we have a 2500 on the left and a Ribbon VR2 on the right, and I'll just pick that because I like the way it sounded in the moment. And then the effects page, again like before, chorus, delay and reverb all on. This time we're using just the mono delay, and the reverb isn't as washy, but it is still there. You could also try this preset with the Piezo as well. So the Piezo would be a little bit more woody sounding. That's how I described it when I was first playing it. Too thick, you can add the air, switch, and take out some body. Let's ride the treble and presence just a little bit and turn down some mids. So you get this really nice sparkly cleans, especially if you've got a split coil setting on your guitar or if you're running single coils. And you can just wash this tone with so much reverb, not that much reverb, maybe a little bit less. Add a lot of decay, completely open it up so there's no low and high pass. Let's leave the pre-delay for now. And let's just, why not, let's just put the delay in stereo and ride the chorus, and let's see what that sounds like. So right now, let's turn the compressor on. Right now, every single thing is engaged. We've got overdrive, phaser, chorus, flanger. We're using the third amp. I haven't touched the cap section, haven't touched the EQ section, but we are using all chorus, delay, and reverb. And of course, this isn't practical for a high gain rhythm tone, but it is nice for layering and some lead tones and ambience and stuff like that. So even when you're just mucking around and not even trying to be serious, like, it's still hard to sound bad, and that's just a testament to Neural DSP's processing and how they go about doing things. Again, I don't need to mention how, like, this interface is super easy to use, super easy to navigate, very intuitive. Like, you guys know the drill. It's a Neural DSP plugin. They've been doing it for years now. Like, literally, I cannot fault this plugin at all. And if you're looking for, like, bang for buck, if you're looking for a plugin where it's going to give you everything, this is it right here. You even get a phaser and a flanger. Like, I can't think of any other plugins, only from Neural DSP, maybe apart from the Gojira, that offer this much. But then again, the Gojira is not offering like the volume pedal and this like extensive EQ and the room. What else can I say really? Like, it is a John Petrucci plugin. It's going to have all the bells and whistles, and it's made by Neural DSP, so it's going to be made very nicely. Again, if there were some things that I didn't really touch on as much as you would have liked, I'm kind of urging you to download this and try it for yourself. There is a free 14-day trial. I have a link for that in the description. They haven't told me to say that. I'm sure they would like me to say that, but they haven't told me to say that specifically. I'm telling you because you should try it out for yourself, and that's the best way of kind of gauging if you think this plugin is useful for your needs, and I have no doubt that it will be. So there you have it. As you can tell, this is the most extensive plugin that Neural DSP ever put out, and it just sounds great no matter what you do with it. Massive thanks to everyone at Neural for letting me try this one early. If you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you saw or heard. And if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. Again, if you want the tab stems, DIs, drum tracks, all that good stuff to the demo song that you heard at the beginning of the video, definitely check out my Patreon, and all my affiliate links. All that stuff will be down in the description below. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.